Hello, everybody. This is Scott Freymuller again, and Shelly Netco with the Knot. This is the he said, she said portion of the show, and right now we're going to talk about kids. This is the end of our studio time, getting close to it. So we just thought this was important to talk about the most important part of our world, and the things in our life that can cause the most trauma too. Of course, not purposely, but if something unfortunate happens, it's always a huge deal. So. I guess I'll start off if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I talk way more than you anyways. But when I think about kids, I think about that's what this is all about, right? Trying to be as healthy as we can, trying to identify red flags, trying to manage our trauma or our events in our life to help our kids, right? Because the way we behave is the example to them, and our relationships are an example to them. Like you said earlier with your daughters, they saw you in a super healthy marriage, and that's a great example. Then you just said you traumatized them before we started, but we'll get to that.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, but
that was during the healthy marriage.
Right. But the thing is kids, like for me, I wish I'd had more. I think, my personal thing, that's one of the reasons why I did what I did, because I really wanted to have a family. Like I wanted to have like a crew, and at this point in my life, I don't think that's really an option to have more kids. But, my son is, that's that's a huge part of my life. And that's when you really learn about love, right? Like kids really teach you about what really love is, because there's no scorecard with love. And there's no strings attached to love with your kid. Like you just love your kid. Mm-hmm. That's not even a question.
Purely
right?
the most unconditional, pure,
that's so
beyond what you can achieve with a partner.
Yeah. And kids help you grow. And they make you accountable. Like we were talking, I think we were talking about the show, and this show really makes us accountable. And it's helping me grow a ton, because it's helping me think, right? Because I can't play any games because they're filming it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you got me, like I'm screwed. So it's kind of one of those things where you either choose to grow or you're gonna fail. And that's how kids are. Like you have to choose to grow. And I remember from the fire service, and the only reason why I'm going to tell this story is because I think it relates to people with trauma, is that all that I experienced in the fire service was so, I think, stressful and traumatic for me as a person. When I thought about having a kid, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that, because I didn't want to be that fearful, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to say too that if someone says something about kids in a story that's like indicates any kind of trauma, that's a big freaking deal, because I think that is another level. I mean, I know your brain thinks the same and there's no difference in whatever, but when somebody says kids, that's like, you know what I'm saying? Then now everybody resonates with that.
I do.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
because everyone was a kid. Everyone might not have kids, but they were a kid.
Right.
So that somehow connects.
And we're trying to get back to that too. Like healthy is having that, I like everybody, I love everybody, I don't have conflict, I'm on the playground at kindergarten, everybody's cool, I got buddies, we're playing ball, like there's no problems,
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where everybody's trying to get back to, right, from a mental health perspective. Mm-hmm. That's where we're supposed to be.
Sure.
Nobody ever looked at what kind of car they drove to kindergarten, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
they didn't have judgment. I didn't have judgment in kindergarten.
Right. I mean, kids shouldn't. Some
right.
do now.
But that's like the
changed.
example. Like they set the example to what we're supposed to be.
Sure.
And the point of this is that, when we're in a relationship that's unhealthy, then we're giving them that input that's negative input, and it makes them think negative, and it makes them be like, wait, well, mom said this to dad or dad said this to mom, and it creates stress. And again, I'm sorry, if you want to say something, just hit me or whatever, but.
No, I want to see where you're going.
Well, my next thing I was going to talk about is what happened with my son.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And knowing my story, now that everybody knows my story, which is why I told it, right? Because now it's fully transparent. Mm-hmm. And the conflict that I created with my ex-wife, it damaged my son, partly, which, I apologize for, whatever. That wasn't all my fault, but it was a lot of my fault. And, that conflict and that going back and forth and that banter, which is another reason why that relationship was super toxic, because my partner wasn't supporting there's no empathy towards anybody on like, hey, this must be difficult, I'm so sorry, like, don't worry, we're going to take, you know what I'm saying? There's no empathy. It was always like, F you, you know what I mean? And that just fueled this fire of resentment, scorekeeping, all the negative stuff that you think you could have in a relationship gets freaking way worse when you're divorced.
Absolutely.
Right? Because now, divorce in itself is, maybe we talk about that on one of these shows, but divorce in itself is so traumatic and so horrible. But people think like, oh, I'm going to get divorced and my problems are going to be better. Well, actually, they get bigger because now we have other people.
Exponential, compounded.
Yeah, now I have like somebody else in, the situation that's given their input, and I might have other kids, and I might have this and that. Right. So when people talk about divorce, I almost always say, like, you really need to think about that. Like, that's not a good plan for life or anything, right? For your kids, for anything. And
sometimes it's the solution.
Sometimes it's the solution. Sometimes you got to cut the cord, right? Absolutely. I get that. But generally, like, if it's not, you know what I'm saying? In most of my experience, the people that got divorced probably could have saved it if they really wanted to. Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't there. But that's going back to my, like, hey, we won't fail, we're going to live forever thing. So Nathan is caught up in this conflict, right? And, I go see him one day at one of his swim meets, and he's, like, swimming all the time. He's doing push-ups. He's doing sit-ups. He's, like, he can do 100 push-ups in a row.
Wow.
And he's 11. And he weighs like 60 pounds or something, right? And he has ADHD and blah, blah, blah. Me and my ex-wife are fighting. And anyway, so make a long story short, we end up taking him to the psychiatrist, who's amazing, by the way. Her name's Lydia. And we walk in the door, and she's like, he has anorexia. And that was like the dumbest face I probably ever had in my life. I was like, what? I thought she was kidding, but I knew she wasn't kidding because she doesn't joke around. And I was like, wait a second, anorexia? And I didn't even know what to do. I was like, okay, I didn't know what it was. And I had to go home and research it, and I realized it's a mental disorder, right? And it's about control, and I didn't know that then. This was a long process. This is like a 3-4 year long process. But the kid weighs, I don't know, 64 pounds or something like that, and he's 11. And as you learn about that disease, your everything in your body shrinks. Like your brain is the first thing to not be perfused, which is what you need to be rational, which is why they think how they looks good, right? But as a parent, it was so hard. It was like so difficult to realize that, like, he's on his own journey, like he's his own person, and you can't make him think a certain way. Yeah. Like, you can't say, oh, don't worry about it, you'll be okay.
Yeah, and you can't say, eat a steak, you'll be good.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work
that way.
And that was,
which is what some parents think.
That's what I was doing at first. I'm like, eat your fucking food, because that's what my parents did to me. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get up to eat your food. Well, sit
we
there all
parent
night.
The way we were parented, unless we learn something different.
Yeah. So he goes to a facility, an inpatient facility, and we're going to like an outpatient thing like every day of the week, and that is a huge amount of stress. And who cares about me? But for my son and for any kid that's going through that. And the craziest thing is when you see these kids, they're all amazing. And they're super smart, and they're super empathetic, and they care about everything. And they're like, I almost want to say like they're victims, because they kind of are. But the parents are everything, right? Every color, every nationality, every, like, whatever, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Married, divorced, it was like every different thing. And whatever happened to trigger that in their mind, it was like, I just sat there the whole time, and I remember I was in this like parent thing, and I sat there and cried the whole time, because I just couldn't fucking put my head around when my kid's gonna die. You know what I mean? Like, that's the path they're on. And finally we get into this place called ERC in Colorado, Eating Recovery Center in Denver. It was fucking amazing. These people changed the world, I swear to God. Like, it gives me goosebumps now when I think about it. But it made me realize, like, I learned so much about being a parent. And that's when I really started. You asked me if there was one event in my life that really made me, like, work on things, is I went to ERC in Denver with my partner at the time, a gal or a woman, and we drove there together. I drove my motorhome. We got to Denver, parked the motorhome, and there's a bar across the street. And this is the night before I'm going to bring my kid in. Like, I'm going to leave my son in Denver for months or however long it takes. And we went across the street to a bar, and there was a gnome there, and I was joking around about the gnome. And it turned into this freaking nightmare war, like this giant fight about me flirting with the bartenders and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know really what it was about. I'm not really sure if maybe the gnome and the swinger thing brought something up. I don't know. But it was a joke. And it turns into this fight, and I was like so upset, and I was so just like broken. I went in the motorhome and I like cried on the floor. I was like, I'm fucking letting go of my kid. Like, this doesn't work. I'm fighting with the woman that I love about a gnome, and it just, like, my brain exploded, and I fucking broke down into nothing. I was like in a puddle of snot and boogers, like I think you said.
Snot and boogers.
And I was like, wow, like, however old I was at the time, and here I am, like
what
seriously.
What is my life?
This is my fucking,
This is
like,
my life?
and that's when I really started on that path of mental health, because I knew I had to change who I was, otherwise I couldn't help my son.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I was going to counseling, but I really, really started focusing on it at that point. And I remember going into there, and this is really about kids, because I was like, fuck, I have to be so much better to help my son. And this relationship that I have is really affecting what's going on,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Not only getting us here, but now that we're here and things are fucked up, there's no support.
Well, but not only that, the divorce affected him to get him there, right? And how you behaved after the divorce, you and your ex, and then the new relationship.
Oh my God.
And I think we oftentimes, as adults, get so wrapped up in our pursuit of happiness, whether that means getting a divorce or whether that means living our individual life and pursuing whatever we're pursuing, and then getting into conflict and arguing, and then moving forward in new relationship and lying to ourselves about the new relationship, and not paying attention to the kids, or thinking they're fine without even like giving it a second thought. And they're the ones who should come first when it comes to that mode.
Yeah, they should, and not paying attention to what's going on. Like, one of the things about that is knowing your child, right? And that brings me to a couple things. When people tell you what to do in a relationship, they don't know shit, because the only people that really know are the two people in the relationship.
Sure.
So people's opinion doesn't mean anything. And I actually think anything other than support and like supporting somebody's journey is not okay. My own personal belief on that. But with your child, the same thing. Like, you know your kid. And we actually brought him to a couple doctors, and they're like, oh, he's fine. He's like, I don't know, 0.5% of where he should be in growth and weight.
That's not
height
fine.
and weight.
That's not fine.
And they're like, but he's just dehydrated. Don't worry about it.
Not fine.
And I'm like, well, okay. That's what the doctor said. When this kid looks like shit and he's not acting right? Like, his brain isn't functioning properly. He's losing. It was just crazy. And I remember just people, like, I was in denial. My ex was in denial. The doctors don't know what. And I don't want to say they don't know what they're talking about, but it's not a normal thing. Like, anorexia isn't something that a lot of people know about, you know? So it was this huge education, and I just remember that day. Like, that's when you asked me what it was, and I delete that day out of my mind, because I think that was one of the worst days of my fucking life. Like, that event, me in there crying, my son's with my ex, you know, at another hotel or whatever, and I drove out there because I was going to kind of try and live there for a while so I could support him. And, man, it was horrible. So, you know, the next day, she didn't end up going with me, so I went, and my ex-wife brought a friend, because it was so traumatic for her that I don't think she could really cope with that,
Yeah.
you know? So we walk around and we do this tour, and then they admit Nate, and that was it. And I was like, fuck. And then we couldn't see him for a week. We could only see him on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, for an hour each day. And it not only like reminded me of love and how much I really cared, but it drove me, it gave me that determination to really, really change and to really focus on like mental health and understand.
Sure.
And the resources they gave in doing that is huge. And they said a lot of the same things we're saying about the relationships we have as adults is the same thing they said about the kid, right? You have to know your truth. And they really focused on why. Like, what was it that made you do this? We know it's about control. Like, psychologically, it's about control.
Well, they can't control what's going on, so they can only control what's going on.
Yeah. And they did this thing about choice. And they had this, I just, like, that was brutal. But anyway, so we sat in this room, and this really, really, these people are amazing. And they had this doc in there, and he was talking about your mood, you know, and he's like, hey, physiologically, your brain only holds a mood or an emotion for 90 seconds. And he goes, picture yourself sitting on this beach, and I use this all the time, like I explain it this way all the time, because it's super amazing. You're sitting on this beach, and the river goes by, and there's trees all around, and the leaves are falling off, like fall, like now. And each leaf is a different emotion, and when it hits the river, it goes by you in 90 seconds, whether it's anger or sadness or whatever that emotion is. And the only reason why you stay in that state is because you pick up the leaf and you hold it. And they're like, your kids have a choice on what they're going to choose, if they're going to choose life or death. And understand, too, that they have to make this choice 5 times a day for hopefully not the rest of their life, but at least until they're 21, until their brain fully develops. And he explained it like anorexia would be if you're an alcoholic and you line up 10 of your favorite drinks, 10 glasses of wine, say we're alcoholics,
Right.
and you can only drink 3 of them, and you do that 5 times a day. That's the kind of brain power it takes, because you can't stop eating food.
Right.
Like if you're an alcoholic, you just stop drinking, right? And I like, I'll never forget, like that was so, like, it was this big room full of people, and it was all about the kids, and the kids were like actually better than the adults. They were so smart, and they were so just amazing. It was just, oh my God, it was humbling. And they basically said, everything you know about mental health and parenting, just leave it at the door, because you guys don't know shit. And I was like, and they said it just like that. I was like, okay. And they start talking about, you know, not leaving a stone unturned. If you have a problem, like even now when Nathan comes home and he's acting weird, I'm like, hey, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're talking about it. Like, that's not how shit works.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, right? Oh, well, it's all good. No, dude.
It's not
no,
fine.
It's not okay. Yeah. And that's the kind of things. And I'm not trying to make this like a super negative conversation, but I am
It's not
making
negative.
this.
It's very positive.
I'm making this a conversation about, you know, the things that we do in our life affect our children.
Absolutely.
And it affects them in a big fucking way. And the way we behave and the way we talk and all those things, it makes a big difference.
They absorb everything.
And I can promise you, I wasn't the best. I think I'm a good father. I know my heart's in the right place, but my behavior always wasn't a good example of what I want or would hope my son and his kids and anybody's kids would be, right? And that's something, you know, that I had to work through a little bit in counseling too, because I fucked up a lot of stuff. In the end, though, he's just really well-rounded. He's a smart kid. You know, he's probably way smarter than he should be, because he's hung her out for 3 months with all these people, and you know what I mean? Like, he's locked up with all these doctors and counselors.
He's
and
done
shit.
some work by the age of 14, which
tons.
a lot of people don't do the work, and they're, you know, they haven't done anything or exploring
Yeah.
or self-awareness, and they're, you know, 50.
So anyway, the point of this is that, you know, not identifying those red flags. Fuck, like that's like, it's so gnarly when I think about that time. It's so, like, my heart attaches to my brain on that deal. You know what I mean? And it's like so crazy that I think about that like I can't imagine a parent losing a child. Like, that's just off the charts. And when we talk about trauma, just that. I mean, he's good now, but that's like a huge deal, right? That's more traumatic for me than anything that ever happened at the fire department. But the point is when kids are sick or when kids get hurt or, God forbid, they die, that's like, if somebody says kids, that's okay.
I'm done.
Let's talk. And you sit there and you fucking pay attention and you listen.
Yeah.
Because that is something that you can't play with. And I'm saying this to you, like, from a spousal standpoint, whether it's a male or female, it doesn't matter. But if somebody says something about a kid, they're fucked up. Like, in the fire service or the police department or whatever, that's not something you can play with. And even Brian, when he talked about that 7-year-old girl, that fucked him up, right? And it brings rage, and it brings like all these massive emotions.
Yes.
But it's really, truly all about that. That's not something that builds up from other things in your life. That's
no.
like, why does this happen and why? And you can't wrap your head around it. And I think that's my biggest point about the kid thing, is I told my story.
Well, they're innocent.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's not fair.
Right? And it's
That's not what they signed up for.
Right.
They signed up for acceptance, love.
And they didn't do anything. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to like make this like this, you know, whatever. I could cry in like 2 seconds. But my point is that how important that is. I think I made that point, right? Like how big of a deal it is that the kids, and that's what a lot of this is about, is helping people do better so the kids can be okay. Mm-hmm. Not okay, but great, you know, and making that effort. Like, I don't remember a time in my life where my dad ever told me that he loved me. Not once. And I don't remember a time in my life where my dad ever was there for me. So me now as a father, I tell him every day, I love you, I love you, I love you, and he tells me back. And every time I see him, he gets up and he hugs me. Like every time. It's almost like a dog when you get home. He's like all happy to see me still. And he's 14, which is cool. But I write on his mirror, I'm like, you're amazing, and I love you, and you can do anything you want to do, and blah, 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 you know? And it's like so powerful to do that, to support your children that way. And it's also so powerful to understand that, you know, he's 14 now, and I'm not that cool anymore, right? Like his buddies are cool, and he's into girls, and he's thinking about a car, what car he wants, and shit like that, which is super healthy because he's doing his own thing.
And a lot of parents get locked up in staying in that mode of being the parent of a young child, and they can't let go, like you're letting go, which is very healthy. And this is especially true for women. And I think, not to be a sexist, but a lot of moms I know have trouble letting go because that's their thing.
Right.
And then when they get to that teenage role, you know, when kids become teenagers, and then kids try to, you know, become themselves, then moms hang on to it too much sometimes and over-identify with it. And then they become sad, they become lonely, they become miserable because it's
That's
not,
traumatic too.
It's traumatic, and they don't know this. They don't know it. And, you know, when conversations come up, it's really can emotionally wreck someone.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think about like a child being born, I think about protection. What's it like for a woman?
What do you mean?
Like what?
You mean
I can't imagine
you mean
the
your
attachment
child's born
of
and you want
carrying
to
a human being in your
protect?
body and then birthing it, and like that's like you.
Yeah.
See, for me as a man, like I know it's part of me, but I didn't like hold the child in my stomach.
I mean,
and
it's
like for me, it's like I want to protect him so he doesn't die.
Yeah. And
For
as a
you-
mom, you have an irrational fear that something's going to happen because that's an extension of you.
Right.
And then you also, you know, it depends on if it's boy or girl, I'd say. And I've had this conversation with many people. There's a saying that we mothers raise our daughters and we love our sons. And it's because the idea is that we raise our daughters to become women, but all we know how to do is love our sons, and our job isn't to raise them to become young men. So there's different parenting that happens. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have one son and I have daughters, but...
You have 4.
Yeah. But having had both sexes, and my son was last, so I didn't realize that until he came along. And I had a really funny conversation with my youngest daughter recently, who has a daughter and 2 sons. And at one point, I think there was a time when, you know, my girls had some like weird, not jealousy, but they would make kind of snide comments about my son, like, I don't know if I favored him or just whatever it was, but it was something that made me kind of feel like, oh shit, is that a thing? That kind of a deal, right?
Like what was oh shit kind of a thing?
Like maybe I was like giving him special attention about something, or he got a different treatment about some situation than they did. I can't remember. And maybe it's because he was the last one, and by then I was freaking over parenting. I'm not even kidding. Seriously.
Well, that's the girl's job. You go like, all right,
Well,
you guys can.
you know, the oldest one, like you get a B, and I take your door off of your bedroom. You know, with him, he gets D's. I'm like, can you do better, son? You know what I mean? It's like you get to
Because those aren't the end of the
you get to
world
5,
type
you're like,
things anymore.
you get to 5, you're like, all right, nobody's dead, we're good.
Right.
So, but anyway, so I had this conversation with my daughter recently, and her daughter is the oldest, and she's got the 2 boys, and she was like, "There's just something about having a boy," and I was like, "Now you get me. You get it? It's just this thing that you can't describe, and it's a different kind of connection, and I mean, it's like the girl thing is outrageously amazing. The boy thing is too, but it's definitely different. So I think kids sometimes get wrapped up in, like I did, with comparison and whatnot, and it can change the dynamic of a parent-child relationship.
And they absorb what you say
They
too.
absorb
It's
what you say.
it's
Yes.
amazing. I'll tell you. So you know, I did my story, and kids are so in tune with what's going on. It's amazing. Like Nathan doesn't like. I won't say too much, but he's not a fan of alcohol, right? For many reasons. And yesterday, after my ex told me that, you know, whatever about her seeing me say all these stories and stuff, I was like, what the? Nathan's sitting there in the seat because we don't have secrets. And I mean, I don't tell him everything, but generally we don't, we talk about life in our relationship, like there's no secrets, like we share together to make sure he gets the same story and stuff. Not negative, not conflict, but whatever. So I was like, hey, you may want to consider doing some therapy and some work on, your dad and that kind of stuff. I'm talking to my ex-wife. And I was genuinely concerned. And Nathan's sitting there in the passenger seat. I'm kind of like hanging in the window, I'm not lecturing her, but I'm just kind of like, hey, like there's a lot going on, and I can tell you like this changes your life, And no, I'm good. I don't even think about it anymore. I don't even worry about it. Nathan looks over to her and he's like, Mom, every time you drink, you bring it up. Ooh. And I was like, fuck, this kid is so in tune with what's going on. He knows what's up.
He knows.
But that's the point, like kids know what's up.
They do.
And if you're not healthy, they're going to know what's up.
They are.
They notice that. They watch it. They freaking copy the behavior. It's crazy how much they absorb as children. Like they're not their little brains, but their brains are just, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think what I found was when my kids would tell me stuff, I don't know why, I would always step back and go, oh shit, they're right. I always did that. I would step back and listen. I would listen, step back, get some perspective on it, and then understand, the children shall lead them. They're right because they're being observational. They're innocent in the story. They don't have any motive with the outcome like the two adults do, right? So that's a real eye-opener for a lot of parents who aren't paying attention, I think.
And it's an eye-opener for control, too. I remember my mom used to give Nate money. Like, she'd win at bingo, and she'd give him $100.
Right.
And I'd be like, Mom, that ain't cool, right? Because this kid has, like, money. Like, he has money, right?
It's good, yeah.
So I'm like, dude, here's the deal. I go, I'm going to take half that, and I'm going to put it away. I'm going to match it for your car. And he's like, the $100 is excessive, right? That's between me and my mom. Right? That was between me.
Depends on how much she won.
Right, true. Like there's a percentage, right? He needs commission.
Right.
But I remember saying that to him, and he's like, he got mad, and I'm like, what's your deal, dude? Because I'm like, I'm your fucking dad, and I'm gonna say what we're gonna do. Like you don't have a say.
Yeah.
And he goes, are we not gonna leave a stone unturned? And I'm like, okay. He's like, can I talk to you? And I said, okay. So I'm like, okay. So I sat down and I listened to him. And he's like, Dad, he goes, I'm starting to grow into a young man now. And he goes, my grandmother gave me this $100. So it's my $100, technically.
That's right.
And he goes, you wanting to take half of it and save it for me is really controlling what I can make a decision on because I'm old enough to make a decision on that.
Wow.
And I was like, in my head, I'm like, you little motherfucker.
Right?
First. But I didn't say that out loud, right? And I was like, okay, that was such a good logical argument.
Step back, perspective, listen.
I was like, okay, but here's the terms. If you're going to manage your money, then don't, ask me for stuff like manage your money because your mom's giving you, your grandmother's giving you cash all the time, so you got money.
Right.
So if you want to manage your own money, then manage your own money. But as far as like wants, you know what I'm saying? That's going to be on you. Needs, I'll take care of, but wants going to be on you. And when it's time to buy your car, if you don't have a ton of money saved up, like what we have saved up, so what we have saved up. Deal? He's like, deal. I go, okay, you got full responsibility. And I always remind him, but I don't make him do it, right?
Sure.
And I was like, son of a bitch, that was total control. Which is you have to do as a parent.
Yeah.
But to let him grow and mature and give him that autonomy and that like, yeah, man, like I think that helped him with confidence because I was like, okay, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like we were saying before, kids help you grow so much.
My one of my daughters at one point, I can't remember, she was like 17 and a half, I can't remember. And I came home one day and she had a tiny nose piercing. And we had talked about it and I told her 18. And she wasn't 18. And I walked in and of course, she's out, I think she was almost out of high school. She had her own job, she had a car, she had a debit card, she everything. She was a good kid. And anyway, I walked in, I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me right now? She's like, what? And it's this tiny thing you can barely see. And so I, started going to this whole upset thing. And she's like, seriously right now? She's like, basically, I manage my life like an adult. Said, I have like 1 or 2 classes. I'm getting A's. I already am going to, I've got my things set up for ASU. I have a car, I have this. She went through the whole thing. She's like, can you tell me what the problem is? And I was like, there's no
You
problem.
little motherfucker.
I was like, there's no problem at all. Actually, it's cute. But it was just like, sometimes we as parents get so wrapped up in what? Being right. Or just wanting to be the parent.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter the age. Sometimes an 8-year-old is right.
Right. Yeah. And,
Right?
And having that humility, you know, and that comes from the health.
Humility is it.
It comes from being healthy to have humility, because realizing, like we talked earlier, you know, Brian even commented, he's like, being right doesn't actually matter.
No.
You know what I mean? It's like not even
No.
it doesn't matter. It
Even
doesn't
with
matter at all.
kids. But parents get so wrapped up in controlling and being right when it comes to kids.
Yeah.
And that's where the breakdown is. And then that's where kids don't learn empowerment, decision making, and resilience. And that's a mess.
Isn't that the breakdown in a relationship too? It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Right. So being a parent is actually how you run your relationship also. And I don't think there's such a thing. I don't think anybody wants to be a bad parent.
No.
So I don't think there's such a thing as a bad parent. But I do think by not talking with your children, especially like in a mixed family, because I tried that for a little while too. And there was never a communication of, hey, when you're here in this house, this is our house as a crew. It was always like, hey, this is our way and this is your way. And we're separate. But even though we lived in the same house, and that didn't work either.
Yeah, it's
you
hard.
know, that was like really, that was a respect thing. That was a breakdown in communication. That was a breakdown in communication for the kids too. But what I'm trying to say is, like, if the parents or the couple isn't on the same page, then nothing really is going to work in that environment. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the communication of what's happening and what's going on is huge.
Well, and what happens in those situations oftentimes, and now we're on kids and blended families, which is fine. I even wrote a book about it, is triangulation happens. So kid is unhappy. Kid goes to mom. Mom goes to partner to tell partner what kid is unhappy about. Partner and 2 partners get in an argument about it. And kid is over here knowing that they caused it because kid is right. Kid thinks they're right. Kid wants to be right. Kid is actually like running the house right there.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
And the triangulation just continues.
Right.
And it can also continue with it can happen with exes. So say my partner is in a thing with is like, you know, wrapped up with his ex in a conversation, and a child goes to the mom, and then the mom calls the partner to tell them what they're upset about something I did. So the triangulation is very toxic, and it's the road to absolutely nowhere. Yeah.
Well, disaster too,
Yeah.
and they can manipulate.
Yes.
The kids, I don't think the kids. Well, I think the kids sometimes do it purposely 'cause they're smart.
But often not. It's their creative problem solving in the middle of a situation, and they don't know what the hell to do.
In my experience, the ex got married, and they actually created a really stable environment and a really healthy environment where they stood as a couple and said, "Hey, here's the rules." Whereas we didn't do that, and it became almost like they'd come back and say, "Oh my God, well at so-and-so's house, like this happened, and this is bullshit, and blah, 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 blah." And then it was almost like, "Oh, don't worry about that here, you'll be fine." So there's like actually no rules, and there's no boundaries.
Right.
Now it's like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like there's no...
Kids need consistency. They need acceptance. They
Right.
need love. I mean, that is like, and safety.
Right.
Like those are the big 4. And if they don't feel it, no matter what environment, and if they don't feel boundaries, like they walk into your space and there's no boundaries because there's no rules, that's a mess. And then they try to survive and they figure it out on their own. So you've got maybe an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, and they're like coming up with creative problem solving as an 8-year-old.
Right.
It's going to be a little different than what a parent might think.
You know, we were talking about boundaries, and when I was at ERC with Nate, you know, and we were sitting in there and they were talking about respecting your parents, and I was like, fuck, here we go. Like, I'm gonna get thrown under the bus, because this is a thing where we have a psychiatrist, psychologist, we have a counselor, we have a dietitian, like we have this big team of people. And there's me and Nate. And Nate's sitting there like with his legs crossed. He's like, "Yeah, I got this." Like, he's totally dialed in. He's totally comfortable in that environment, which
Yeah.
is funny.
Good.
And I'm kind of shitting my pants, and I'm like, fuck, what is he going to say, right? And they were talking about respect, and they're like, do you respect your parents? And he said, well, one of them. And I'm like, oh.
You're like, ruh-roh.
And they go, which one do you respect? And he said, my dad. And I was thinking, why would he say that? Like, he's probably scared because I'm sitting here. And he goes,
Was his mom there?
No, she was on the phone.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, what's the deal, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I respect my dad because he's consistent. Because like, if he does something wrong, like say for example, if he doesn't go to school or he just to school, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna take your Xbox away for a week, or I'm gonna throw it in the garbage can. And if I tell him that, and he does what he's not supposed to do, then I do exactly what I told him I was gonna do. And there's no going back.
Right.
Or if I say you're grounded for a week, that's it.
Right.
And the lesson learned there is that respect with the kids and that, you know what I'm saying? That whole dynamic is huge. Go
ahead.
No, but I was just gonna say,
No,
but if you apply that to a relationship, it's the same fucking
It
thing.
is.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
You have to be consistent.
You have to be consistent. If you say you're out,
Yeah.
if this happens like I'm out, you got to do it. You can't not do that because then they own you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to make one last comment, and it's about the acceptance. Always accepting them. Like you make a mistake.
For who they are.
Let's figure out what that means.
It's not the what, it's the why.
And so my son, when he was a teenager, he and his buddy were at a gas station, Circle K, whatever, and his buddy took a drink and put it in my son's backpack. And then his buddy walked out, and my son got busted.
Oh, wow.
And the cops brought him home.
Uh-huh.
And my husband freaked out. Like he was flipping the kitchen table over almost, like freaking out, screaming.
Right, right.
And I sat there and listened and paid attention to what he was saying and everything. So this whole thing happened, and he was grounded and all this other stuff. But it wasn't long after that he came to me and told me how much it meant to him that I listened and I didn't get mad and I paid attention to what he was saying.
Right.
And it was just like going through the process of like what's really behind this.
Right, like what's really going on.
Yeah, what's really going on.
Yeah.
Versus like, freaking out and telling me he's going to ruin his future because of a soda or a monster
Right.
drink or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, which was a whole different deal when my husband was doing that, but it's okay. But it's just, it just goes back to acceptance. And no matter what, when they make a mistake, no matter what kind of a mistake, they need to know they shouldn't be in fear that you're not going to love them.
Right.
And if they are in fear that you're not going to love them, then that's a red flag as a parent.
Right. And we got to stop now because we're running out of studio time. But
I know.
But we should continue this again. But I was
Yeah.
just going to say that my only rules with my son is that we don't lie and we don't quit.
I like it.
And if I followed my own rule that I have my kid, like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have half my shit that I had to deal with, right? So it's funny how we like try to, you know what I'm saying? That's hypocritical, right?
Well, it depends
to say
on,
that.
Depends
But,
on when you said that,
like,
when you
let's
made
follow
the
our
rule
own,
and where you are.
Yeah, let's follow our own rules, and things will be a lot better,
Sure.
right? Because then, if you're like, hey, you can't do this, but then you're doing it, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, we'll follow up. We should probably do a couple on kids
Yeah, I
because
gotta
there's a
tell you
lot to
about
say.
putting my daughter in a headlock. I got to go there.
Maybe not on camera
Part
because that'd
two.
be like
No, she
incriminating
knows about
yourself.
it. It's all good.
Right. Okay. All right.
It
well.
was necessary.
Anyways, thank you, Shelly, for sharing, and thank you, everybody, for watching. Scott Freymuller and Shelly Netco with The Knot. Thank you again. Appreciate the support.